Unfortunately, my husband's on another meeting, but he's using Zoom, so I couldn't use it.
There you go. Now we've solved the problem.
Awesome.
I think the last person we're waiting for is Lieutenant Patrick Hayes.
So Pat's here with me.
I'm actually here.
Okay, so then we can begin. So I'm just going to start the opening here, and then we can get started. My name is Ricardo Arroyo. I'm the District 5 City Councilor. I'm also the chair of the Boston City Council Committee on Public Health. I'm joined today by Councilor Ed Flynn and Councilor Anissa Essabi-George. This public hearing is being recorded and live streamed at the boston.gov City Council TV. It'll be rebroadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, and Fios Channel 964. We'll take public testimony at the end of this hearing. I currently don't have anybody signed up for public testimony, but if you would like to do public testimony, please email Michelle Goldberg, Michelle A. Goldberg at boston.gov to sign up. When you're called, please state your name and affiliation, residence, and limit your comments to no more than 2 minutes to ensure that all comments can be heard. You may also submit written testimony by emailing ccc.health@boston.gov. Today's hearing is on docket 1036. Which is a message in order authorizing the city of Boston to accept and expend the amount of $498,291 in the form of a grant for the First Responders Comprehensive Addiction and Recovery Act Cooperative Agreement awarded by the U.S. Health and Human Services to be administered by the Fire Department. Today's speakers, our panelists rather, will be Eamon Miller from the Boston Fire Department, Lieutenant Patrick Hayes from the Boston Fire Department, and Kathleen Judge, who's the Deputy Commissioner of Administration and Finance at the Boston Fire Department. And so let me just actually rename. So hold on. Did we just stop your video by accident? Mr. Miller, if you don't mind renaming yours, or I can do it for you just so that it reflects both of you present on there. And so while that's getting done, and I may do it myself if it's easier, I don't really think there's much of an opening here for me. Obviously I support this grant. I'm more interested in finding out what we're going to do with this grant. And so my question will really literally just be, what are we going to do with this grant? But with that, I want to give the councilors who are present the ability to give a quick opening, and I'll do it by order of appearance. And actually, I think Councilor Essabi-George was first, which is
amazing that I beat Councilor Flynn here.
Yeah, I thought it was. I had to double take because Councilor Flynn's always first, but I'm pretty sure it was you, Councilor.
So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you everyone who is with us today. You know, this grant, obviously it's a little bit of a formality going through this process, but it's helpful to always understand what these funds will be used for. Last week, we held a hearing around the physical and mental health and well-being of our first responders. So I think that this grant certainly fits into our desire to make sure that our first responders have access to high quality programs. And certainly when we have external funds to do that, even better. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Eamon and Lieutenant Hayes and Deputy Judge for being with us today. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Essabi-George, and apologies to Eamon for mispronouncing your name there. Councilor Flynn.
Thank you, Councilor Arroyo. Just want to echo what my colleague, Councilor Essabi-George said. This is an important hearing. It's important that we provide our first responders with the best programs, services, help that we possibly can. They're doing an outstanding job for our city, for our residents under the most difficult circumstances. I also wanted to highlight, after this pandemic is over, I consider this our first responders, they're going to be dealing with a lot of challenges, such as mental health following this pandemic because of the stress that they've been placed in their families as well. It's similar to coming off a military deployment. We need to make sure that we have the services, programs, healthcare available to our first responders and their families. That is going to be a critical part of city government going forward, making sure we're there for our city employees, because our city employees have always been there for us under the most very difficult circumstances and challenges. So thank you, Councilor Arroyo, and thank you to the dedicated panelists that are here. And I see my neighbor from South Boston, Mr. Miller, as well. So good to be with everybody.
Thank you so much, Councilor Flynn. I think this might be a relatively short hearing. The only question that I have for the panel, there's two really. One, just for the public, where's the money coming from? And then the second one is how will the money be used? And that's really it. And thank you for being here today. You know, I echo Councilor Flynn and Councilor Sabi George and the sentiments that our first responders have certainly in 2020 taken on an added burden, and we appreciate their service.
Well, I can take that to start, if that works. But so, you know, first, just thank you to the councilors for giving us the opportunity to share our grant program with you. You know, this is a grant that's from SAMHSA, so it's a federal public health agency. It's a 4-year grant. This hearing is for year 3 out of 4, so we're halfway done. This is a grant that the department administers, but it really is, you know, it's fire department in name, but this is, you know, this is really a grant that we administer in a program that we roll out with many city partners, but especially, you know, Jen Tracy and Devin Larkin and their team at Bphc Recovery Services. They're really the subject matter experts in this space. So they're huge. And then obviously BPD and EMS as well. And so this is really a joint effort. And so, you know, just wanted to give them credit too. SAMHSA has 3 goals with this grant, 3 mandates really. So it's increased access to recovery services for families and individuals suffering from substance use disorder. Big part of the grant is it's a Narcan grant. So we're charged with providing Narcan and distributing Narcan to our first responder partners. So we've done that the past couple of years. And then the final piece is just really enhancing collaboration and in coordination with these other city agencies and other organizations in the space across the city. So, you know, in the past, since the last few years, like the traditional roles of first responders has obviously changed due to the epidemic. So this grant was an opportunity for the fire department to get involved more than we already were. And so we have many activities that we are doing now and have done in the past 2 years, and I'm looking forward to doing in year 3. So I can talk as much or, you know, as little about each, but you know, basically there's a lot that we're doing, a lot that we're proud of, and thankful to have this money.
Thank you so much. I don't know if, because we don't have a video for you, but I don't know if Kathleen Judge would like to speak on that. Okay.
This is Kathleen Judge.
Yes.
And
and
now
so
I think I'm unmuted. Okay. So I do think that this is a great grant that we received. We are the only fire department across the country that received this type of grant to enhance this collaboration. And I really want to echo what Eamon said. The collaboration is key here. And I think it's one of the great attributes of the fire department to be working with DPH and the Boston Fire Department, Police Department, and EMS. And I can't emphasize enough that getting a grant like this to do that type of collaboration is really wonderful. And of course, we've made huge improvements in making sure that the right population gets the access to recovery services and the Narcan. So I really don't have anything else to add other than to echo what Eamon has said.
that's perfect. Thank you so much. And I think that is a credit to our Boston Fire Department that we are who was selected for this grant. With that, I'm going to allow for the counselors who are present if they have any questions, and I'll go by order of arrival. Counselor Sabi George, if you have any questions.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. Mr. Chair, sorry about that. And my one question is regarding the Narcan distribution. Is that going to other first responders? Are you just sort of the clearinghouse for that? And is this also part of your knock and talk effort? And then does the Delta car still exist?
Yep. So great question. So first on the Narcan, yes. So it's primarily right now, we distribute to EMS, Boston Police, specifically their street outreach unit, and then Bphc Recovery Services. So that's their street outreach team. That's A-Hope. That's their trainings that they do. We supported the rollout to the city, the naloxone to the city buildings. So we bought all those kits and helped mount them in city buildings, most recently the libraries and City Hall. And then, yes, the grant funds a couple of different activities. Our Knock and Talk program, so it's a partnership between public health and us, where we're in BPD, where we're following up after an overdose at the homes and trying to get resources in those individuals' help and treatment, following an overdose. So some of the funds support that, support the naloxone for that. Delta Car is a brand new pilot that we started. Thanks for bringing that up, Counselor. It's our sort of take on EMS Squad 80. It's an alternative response vehicle here down at headquarters that responds to medical calls in the Mass Cass area. And that was a 3-month pilot program that was hugely successful. We're hoping to use funds for this year to ramp that back up in the summertime when the weather's nicer. As we know, trends indicate outdoor overdoses are a lot higher when the weather's nicer, right? And so we've had to scale that down since the summer and ramp back up our knock and talk efforts as we expect residential overdoses to grow. And then another just program that I wanted to highlight is our partnership with PATHS, BPHC's 24/7 referral center. Our recovery coaches, twice a week, we identified a gap in being able to transport individuals to detox from PATHS. They have one van and they have taxi vouchers, and especially with the taxi vouchers that they provide, it's not always a warm handoff from one service provider to another. So now we provide a van, we provide 2 recovery coaches twice a week that helps to transport individuals into treatment. And then during that ride, it really is an opportunity for our coaches to build relationships with these individuals. And even on, so that through that, since that started, it'll be like 75 people we've helped place into treatment. And a handful of folks have actually followed up with our recovery coaches after they finish detox for help to get into the next phase of recovery housing. So we're very proud of that too. So that's a couple activities that we're doing that year 3 we're looking to build upon.
I have just a quick follow-up, if that's okay, Mr. Chair. The recovery coaches, they're Boston firefighters?
Correct.
And are you looking to train more?
Yeah, so year 1 we did about 30, which was multidisciplinary, police, fire, EMS, some folks from PATHS. We even had an individual from the Gavin Foundation. This year, to sort of scale up with PATHS, transportation, and Delta being new, we focused just on in-house, and we're able to train 22 firefighters, bringing our capacity to 40 across the department. And so in year 3, we're definitely looking to diversify and use funds to kind of help get, especially folks like from Squad 80 and the street outreach team, if that's something they're interested in, trained as well.
Very good. Thank you. I may have more questions, but that's it for me for now. Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you. Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Councilor Arroyo, and thank you, Councilor Asabi George, as well for your important work on these issues. I just wanted to highlight one issue. Is we often read about, or we often hear stories about city employees, but I sometimes wish we would hear the positive stories about the dedicated work of our city workforce. They do every day. It doesn't get recognized. It often's not appreciated or unknown, but you just explained a tremendous program, Eamon, that's saving lives of people almost every single day. And that's incredible. That's what city government is all about, is providing those types of services. It's the Boston Police, the Boston Fire Department, and the public health Boston Public Health Commission that are doing exceptional work under the most difficult times in our city and country. So I just want to say thank you to the fire department team, the police team, and the public health officials as well. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Councilor Royal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. And we've been joined by Councilor Julia Mejia. Councilor Mejia, if you have any questions.
Yes, I do. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, for hosting this hearing. I just have a few questions, and also to the departments who are here. Great work. I'm curious about, I know that it says it's a collaborative effort between Fire Department, the Boston Public Health Commission, and ORS. Can you talk a little bit about what the collaboration looks like? How are you all getting together to talk through how this grant would be administered? And then I'm also curious as to who else is at the table. There are a lot of great organizations and groups that are out here doing work directly out in these streets to address substance use disorder. And I'm wondering, how are they part of this conversation? And the last thing is always, I always got to ask about cultural competency and language access, and how are you all thinking about these funds to ensure that we're looking at these, the services and the deliverables through a culturally competent lens, and as well as being able to do so in multiple languages.
Thank you for the question, Councilor. I'll take the coordination piece first. So as required by the grant, we are supposed to have an advisory council or join an existing one. So when we first started with the first year of the grant, we put together basically an advisory council or a working group with our public safety partners as well as public health. But what we found was many of the same people, as you know, we were meeting multiple times a week. It was the same individuals who were involved in the opioid space. And so it seemed like sort of a redundant use of time to have like separate advisory councils for separate things. And so in order to streamline that, when we started the CRT team in MassCast, like I said, a lot of those members were on that initial council that we started. So the CRT is our advisory council to a lot of our efforts in the space. So that's where a lot of the coordination takes place with our city partners. So as you know, we meet once a week to talk about issues in MassCast, but also that just lends itself to discussions across the city. So that's where we coordinate. We also have, I have weekly check-ins with Jen Tracy and Devin Larkin and their team, about any sort of issues going on in the space. Like I said in the beginning in my remarks, they're the subject matter experts, so we really follow their lead. We also have a weekly meeting with our post-overdose response team. So that's all about, police, fire, public health, harm reductions specialists from public health. We're coordinating our effort on where to go and what addresses we're going to visit that week. So there is a lot of coordination happening. In terms of partners, yes, I think that's room for us to grow in terms of the nonprofit space and who we can work with more closely. One thing that I'm looking into now in year 3 is we do distribute naloxone to first responders and the Office of Recovery Services, but I'm trying to see if it's allowable within the federal guidelines of the grant to be able to set up a request program for naloxone from some of our nonprofit partners, where we would set up an MOU with them, and then they could request naloxone from us directly, and we could provide the naloxone and any training that they needed. So that's something that we're looking forward to this year with the funds. And then lastly, definitely cultural competencies, obviously a huge part of this. Our recovery coaches are trained through CCAR, so it's a nationally recognized recovery coach training academy. It's a week-long sort of retreat environment workshop, if you will, and there's a whole unit. It's a whole day of training that's focused on cultural competency, so power, privilege, biases. By no means is that one shot, one kill, but that's a whole unit dedicated to that. And we're always looking for ways to, build upon that training. I was talking with our counterparts in New Hampshire, their EMS has this grant, and they just rolled out a whole cultural competency training for their grantees. And so she was able to send me a lot of their documents. So we're looking at that now and potentially setting one up using their templates in year 3. And then lastly, the language piece. Yes, in year 1, we translated all of our documents that we leave behind at the UPORT team, our post-overdose response team. We translated them to 7 different languages. So we had those available so that the people with language barriers did have access to the information. One of our members of the team speaks fluent Spanish, so she's providing interpretation services at times. And then we just updated these materials again, so we're gonna have to like with city branding and stuff like that. So this year we'll translate them yet again into different languages so that we're ensuring that people are getting the information they need.
Thank you so much. And now, if folks want to do a second round, I don't have any further questions. Councilor Nasabi George, you would be first there if you have any other questions you'd like to ask.
I do. I just have sort of a more of, I guess, a quick comment, or I guess a question. I do want to applaud certainly your involvement in the CRT. That's obviously critical for your involvement in that. And I guess what I want to encourage is a greater collaboration. I've done this with EMS and with BPD outreach, but that the 3 groups especially are coordinating services to avoid duplication of services, so that we're not knocking on the same door repeatedly, that we are spreading out sort of our resources so that we're touching more residents who are in need of additional services. But just thank you for your work, and thank you for your continued sort of management and creativity in this effort using these funds. And although you're halfway through, you've done the 2 years, you've got 2 more ahead in this grant. I hope that there's a continual effort to seek out more resources for years 5, 6, and beyond. But thank you, Mr. Chair. I am all done.
Thank you, Councilor Nasabi George. Councilor Flynn, followed by Councilor Mejia, if you have any further questions. I think we've lost Councilor Flynn. So Councilor Mejia, if you have any further questions. All right.
Can you hear me? I'm sorry, I'm having really bad internet connections. I just have one quick follow-up. Is that okay?
Yep, there you go. And you're clear now. You were coming in and out a little bit at the beginning of that.
Yeah, I know. I sound like I'm drowning, but that's okay. I can't be heard.
Yes, you can ask your question.
Okay, sorry. I'm just curious really quick in terms of just any way that if there is already a system in place in terms of just kind of accountability in terms of like what your goals and deliverables are for this grant and how you're making progress. Is that information anywhere that we can just kind of keep, up to date with? Is that unreasonable to ask? I'm just curious about like what we say we're going to do and how we measure that impact. Is there a way for us to just keep up to date with those items?
Yeah, definitely. Great question. So as required by the grant, we have annual progress reports that we have to submit. So we definitely can, I'm happy to send those along. We're required to have a program evaluation. So we have 2 evaluations completed now. Definitely happy to share that. And then I have some other literature that we, high level summaries of stuff that I'm happy to share that with your office, if that would be helpful.
And I'm just curious, since we're entering year 3, I'm curious, I believe that's what I heard, but I'm curious, are there any moments where you look at what was working and what's not working and you're modifying and adapting accordingly?
Yeah, I think it's definitely. I think, for instance, data is always an issue of trying to get better addresses, whether it be an apartment number or something like that. But we've played with going out, doing our post-overdose response, different days, different times during the week to try to get better engagement numbers up. So it's definitely a fluid program where we're constantly trying to try different things to ensure that we're successful, but that's just an example.
Thank you so much. That's all I have,
Thank you.
Chairman Arroyo.
Thank you so much. Considering that there are no further questions, unless you have a closing statement to our panelists, we'll adjourn. Nope. Is that it? Nope. Okay, so we'll adjourn there. Everybody enjoy your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.